Thank you, Mr. Vice President-elect, and um, Vice. Thank you, Mr. President-elect and Vice President-elect Harris. A question for you first, which is, what do you make of the fact that the president is having these calls with Michigan county officials amid his bid to overturn the election? He's going to be having also Michigan Republican legislators at the White House tomorrow. Is anything that he's doing making you rethink your strategy? I know you say that you don't want to have legal action right now. And what do you say to Americans, especially immigrant Americans who came to the United States looking for political stability and seeing all of the things that the president is doing?
Hang on, I'm on my way. That's what I say to them, not a joke. And what the president's doing now is really it's going to be another incident where he will go down in history as being one of the most irresponsible presidents in American history. It's just out of the, not even within the norm at all. There's questions whether it's even legal. But it's going to be interesting to see who shows up in this call to meet with the leadership. And this is going to, we've won Michigan. It's going to be certified. We're going to end up making clear that they are, making clear that we won. And but it just, it's hard to fathom how this man thinks. And it's hard to fathom. I'm confident he knows he hasn't won and is not going to be able to win, and we're going to be sworn in on January 20th. And I just, you know, but far from me to question his motive. It's just outrageous what he's doing.
But as he ups the things that he's doing, calling officials, is it making you rethink your strategy at all? Is there anything that he would be doing that would make you say, okay, we really have to go to court now? Or are you still watching what he's doing and saying we can still kind of wait and see what happens?
I'm not going to rule anything out or anything in, but at the moment, the strategy is not changing.
And if I could ask a question to the Vice President-elect, would that be
Sure.
okay? Vice President-elect Harris, you talked about your state experience. My question is there anything that you heard from governors today that made you specifically concerned about vulnerable populations, especially as I talk to Americans who say, I don't have the privilege to work from home. I don't have the privilege to social distance if I'm living in a house with multi-generations. Did you hear anything that concerns you specifically, and what can we do for them as a country?
Well, as the president-elect shared with everyone, we heard a lot from the governors, including that. Including the concern that African Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, people who live in rural communities, people who, as groups of people, have historically been under-resourced and underserved. And so there was consensus among the governors, bipartisan consensus, that our federal strategy should reflect those concerns in a way that we support the states with the resources they'll need to get to the folks who have been often overlooked or ignored. And the president-elect, I think, has made it very clear that it's one of our highest priorities to support that. As you may know, in the Senate, I actually led what we called a Racial Disparities Task Force. And that approach is something that we will be incorporating in our administration to ensure that all people have equal access to resources, but also taking into account equitable distribution of resources based on need.
Thank you, President-elect Biden.
Let me add to that. One important thing to understand is there is and we've talked a lot about this, and we talked about it when I was running, seeking the nomination as well. And that is that the idea of the brown, black, Asian American, Native American communities are always the first ones hit the hardest and the last ones who are brought back. We're going to flip that around. It's going to be really important to determine priorities based upon access to the information that's available, access to everything from the vaccine to other opportunities to be able to deal with helping the country, part of the country that's been hurt the worst. you know, 3 times as many African Americans have died than white Americans died from COVID. So there has to be a prioritization. That's what I'd like to know exactly what this administration has in mind in terms of their Operation Warp Speed and how they plan it. And that's what we talked about with the governors today. They all mentioned the need to focus on the communities that have been left behind, particularly Governor Cuomo. It's one thing if, for example, vaccines are distributed to all the Walgreens of America. No criticism of Walgreens, but you know, there's a lot of those facilities that aren't in rural communities and are not in poor communities, African American, Latino communities. So we've got to make sure there's access for them.
Thank you so much.